Sweet. All right, let's go. Season 3, episode 10, Iterate and Adapt is the episode. So let's get straight into it. Community members of the week. Want to give a couple of shout outs here. So Dean Michael, just super great energy in the Discord. Official hype man in his own words. Love to have that kind of energy. To Jamaz from last week, where we had like some pretty critical feedback to now being a fan and like providing a bunch of really thoughtful feedback. Really appreciate that. Then rbg.eth, just his excitement about getting a passport, applying a skin, and just seeing that user journey was really cool. So keep it up. It's the thing that we all look forward to internally when we see messages like that. So thank you. Cool. So the overview last week. We made solid progress on enabling custom scores, and you'll see this kind of echoed through a lot of the slides. We've got the initial version of the ARCx score developed, and we've got more custom scores in the pipeline. So for context in terms of like how we see the roadmap evolving, we're creating these scores, and the first utility of these scores is simply people understanding, hey, what is my score? I want to see where I rank relative to everyone else. But from there, it's developing kind of whether it's kind of custom reputation within Discord or staking pools and skins. There's a ton of things to do, but I think the ARCx score in particular is going to be really important because we're kind of solving our own problem. Like we think about our own community right now, it's very fragmented. We have people who are like literally working on this 24/7 full time to people who come in and out and are very mercenary. And I think with the ARCx score, we can now shine a light on where people lie within the ARCx ecosystem, and then reward and highlight those that like we want more of. And I think we're going to spend a bit more time explaining what the ARCx score is because we really want everyone's feedback. Like I like to think of this like this is legislation in the ARCx community. Like this is a score that rules everything. So yeah. Anyway, that'll become more thing. Then it's just thinking about more of like developing a strategy for how we grow the passport ecosystem in terms of utility scores, adoption, and distribution. So we've got some cool things there, which passport pricing ties into this all. So that's still in flux, but that's just like the reason why we're thinking about passport pricing is we want to make this more accessible. Like the way we win is by reaching hitting scale with the amount of passports we issue. So anyway, that was last week. This week is testing for custom scores and getting that live for next week. Fingers crossed. Everyone's been working very hard to get that over the line, which has been really cool. And custom scores really exemplifies the vision that we're going for. Second bit is working with you to improve communications and user flows as time goes on. So we're learning a ton, and already like in the past week, we feel like community engagement's really picked up. So we want to lean into that more, and really like we have a community, so we want to use that to our advantage, so that we can all win and succeed here together. Then it's this week is just like the data team's getting more settled. That's like a data engineer, and basically with that capability, we can start ingesting more funky data sources, for lack of a better word. Which means cooler scores that we can create for you guys. And then I guess shout out to Kale. So he's been working tirelessly to get the dive team up, getting the ARCx score up, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So man's a beast, and wanted to just highlight that. Yeah. So challenges, thinking through what we build next and like how we create utility around scores as they start going live. This is just the vision that we're building out, and yeah, it's going to be really cool to see that. And I think second, which is kind of like I guess the elephant in the room, is like managing expectations around liquidity. I think we probably need a bit more messaging here. And the reality is that like we're an early stage team building something that has never been built before, and a lot of the kind of things around like where is liquidity, it doesn't make sense because to enable liquidity, you either need to pay with ARCx tokens for liquidity mining, or you need to spend ETH in the treasury that reduces runway. And a lot of people who are shouting about liquidity are often ones trying to sell. So we just need to like better manage those expectations because we don't want the DAO to incur significant costs for those who want to like exit real quick, or exit with ease. So, uh, yeah, that's just like I think expectations around it, and just like reiterating to everyone like this is something we're building for the next few years. This isn't like the flavor of the month kind of get a project, copy the source code, stick in a token, and let it rip. Um, so anyway, like it's definitely not everyone, and like it's more of a minor point, but I think we just want to like figure out how we better communicate and manage expectations around it. So that being said, I'll pass it over to Kyle on engineering.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So, like Kerman said, oh, don't change the slides on me. We did get great progress last week on the custom scores. We have the UI pretty much running in staging. We have some integrations running. We're seeing, data get from end to end, which is really cool. We're still ironing out some small details. We're also writing some documentation so that when we integrate with a third party dApps, it's easy for them to one, get the scores, to use them in their contracts, and yeah, and just have like a smooth flow with them. We're also working towards open sourcing our contracts repo. So a few of you guys have been asking us if our repos are open source and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this will add a little bit more transparency. Plus, you guys will get to see all the commits that we do every single day. So you guys can go nuts on that. And if you guys want to correct us on some efficiencies in code, hey, we're always looking to find better talent. So awesome there. And so yeah, this week we are finishing work on custom scores. We're starting to test already. We already started testing, I think, today. So we just started not too long ago. So yeah, so we still have all of tomorrow and all of the rest of the week to finish things there. Now that we're done pretty much all the implementation, now we can finish up the documentation. You didn't want to write the documentation before you're done implementing, because then you end up rewriting documentation. And not that it's already super fun to start off with to write documentation, as every dev knows. We're also planning out our landing page, because our landing page doesn't quite fit the same vision as what it did 3 months ago. So we want to update that. And yeah, and final preparations for open sourcing the contracts. So we did have to upgrade some things and make sure that everything is good for the public there. So shout outs to the entire engineering and also the data team. So we're all marching in the right direction, which is really awesome. Despite the fact that we work across the globe, it's cool to catch up with people and like, yeah, we're all on the same page. We all know exactly what's going on. So yeah, big shout out to us. Challenges is, just this is a big lift. So there's going to be a lot of new things in the UI, a lot of new things in the backend, a lot of new things in the data world. So we just want to make sure that everything's smooth. So far, so good, but that doesn't mean that we get to let up the gas anytime soon. And another challenge is the integration / comms with the Titan world. When specifically when Kale and I are discussing different things, we say different things but mean the same thing. So it's just understanding each other's lingo. It's all great. There is no problems there. It's just we want to make sure that we put an extra effort on that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool, thank you, Kyle. Let's pass it over to Kale.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm loving the love already from everyone for me and the data team. I appreciate that a lot. Last week, so loyalty score, we basically had an internal release last update, and we've actually connected that all up. So I've been working with Kyle in connecting that whole thing, and I'll jump over to a shout out very quickly. Like back-end guys, so that's Kyle and Alex in particular, they've been taking ownership over a lot of the web side of things and kind of building stuff on that front. Massive shout out. Shout you guys all the time, but I really appreciate you helping in that dimension. Your support is valued. All the data people, we are all hacks when it comes to web. We're just data people. So I appreciate having experts helping us out. So last week was connecting to the backend world. We were doing experimentation and kind of analyses around risk parameters for the ARCUSD product. This is all this iceberg kind of work. There's a lot of stuff that happens that's never really seen. But we were spending a bit of time on that last week. So all the data people were putting their thoughts together, doing an analyses and saying, these are these rough ideas we have for this product and why it should be set with these configuration parameters. And the other thing we're working on is monitoring ML ops, credit score. So we want to get this credit score to go up. So we're just doing more and more analyses, making sure it's really, really robust. And after I'm done with this slide, there's a couple slides where I showcase some of the work on that. This week, so testing, we've got custom scores. We need to actually start to publish those, and I'll be working with the contracts engineers to just make sure everything looks right and there's nothing super funky and all of the log passing we're doing makes sense. There'll be further custom score development. So as this pipeline is now really established, it's really easy to start bolting in more scores, providing more utility. So that's a big focal point, and I'm getting a lot of data people to look at that. And then just continued risk modeling, monitoring, ML ops, all the usual kind of stuff. Other kind of shout outs, Liam. So Liam has been working super, super closely with me around building scores and scoping out. And a big shout out, Liam is not an engineer, and I am forcing him to write pseudocode. So huge shout out trying to learn how the hell we do things and have appreciation for that. So a big shout out, just even the intent of showing that you want to be closer to our world is really, really nice. I've already shouted out Kyle, and the backend guy, so shout out again. And data team. People that have worked with me before know that have made the comment that working with me is like drinking from a fire hose. I say a lot of things, I give a lot of things that you need to do, you got to do them really quickly. So big shout out for the data guys for just picking up, 6 different technologies, 2 new languages, all in like a span of a month. It's drinking from a fire hose. Challenges. So there's a lot of kind of internal chit chat around how do we kind of test our data products on test nets and have these ways of asserting that new events all kind of propagate through our system. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of infrastructure and architecture considerations, making sure that all works cross-chain, make sure it's coordinated with the way the kind of Merkle root updating and things like that go. So a lot to consider there. Big kind of hairy challenge that at some point I need to think about really hard and make sure that's SMIC, but that's kind of a challenge I need to figure out. And external comms. Getting better at this, but in particular, as we go live with custom scores, making sure that I'm responding to questions by the community on these scores, what they mean, how do I interpret them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Still a work in progress, but this is something I want to get better at and better at because, as I mentioned, data work is an iceberg. There's this tiny little piece, and the surface is a number, and it seems really simple on face value, but then there's like 3,000 lines of code underneath it. So I just want to get better at making sure I'm socializing some of that stuff. So Kerman, there's 2 slides I just want to kind of step through that
Sure.
showing some of this work. So sorry for the resolution of this thing. That's my own fault for not getting a high resolution picture. This is a part of this iceberg. So there's a lot of things we're doing in the background. And one of them that we've had one of our ML engineers look at is the sensitivity of the credit score. So we built this thing maybe a month or so ago, and we wanted to kind of internally release it in the wild and say, if we left this thing, what would have happened? And when we did our first cut of this analysis, we were noticing it was really sensitive and volatile, and it was reacting to events kind of severely. So one of our ML engineers identified that. He did an analysis. He's tweaked the way the model is trained, tweaked the way the model is evaluated to give it some more stability. So this is an output of that analysis. So after he did these tweaks, so before we were seeing fluctuations of 50, 100 points between day steps, which is not good, but he's kind of stabilized that. And you can see here what we've done is we've kind of built our credit score. And then what we do is we incrementally introduce data into that model. So every day we introduce a new day's worth of observations. So we effectively teach the model that it's back in time somewhere. Let's call it April 2021 for all we care. And we step a day through and give it new information. And these are a few of the credit scores for 20 select addresses over time. So Stuart's the ML engineer that did this. So Stuart's kind of improved that. So you can see it's a lot more stable for a wallet, introducing new data. It doesn't fluctuate as aggressively, and the fluctuations are a lot more natural. Stuart was analyzing this. So good little finding. Switch over for me, Kerman, to the next one. So this is starting to go a bit more abstract. Data people work very abstract in like one graph, which encapsulates a lot of information. This is one of them. Basically, we looked at every single credit score and said, how much was the standard deviation over its entire, I think it was a 30-day introduction window, like stepping through day at a time for 30 days. And the standard deviation is about 15 points, or the mean of the standard deviation is about 15 points per day of increment of data. So way more stable compared to the original like 50, 100 or whatever. There's a lot of ways we can make this even more stable, and we've talked about internally about momentum and talking about updating via epochs and things like that. But again, I just want to highlight how much below the iceberg work gets done. Like these couple graphs take days to produce and analyze and be really certain on the conclusions. It's R&D. But showing more and more to the community, I want to get in the habit of doing that. This is some of the really nerdy stuff that all of the data people kind of get excited about. We look at a graph about standard deviation and we all celebrate and have a beer. So anyway, that's my update. So thank you, Kermit. I think next up is Liam.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. These super cool graphs. Even I didn't know about them. So yeah. Sweet, Liam, over to you.
Okay, hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So last week I met with 3 new partners and 1 existing. So you'll see this is like a recurring thing. Essentially, I'm tasking myself to meet with 3 new partners each week, as well as the existing partners. So the focus thematically you'll see here is on custom scores, which fingers crossed we will be going live with next week. And I say that with trepidation, but with optimism. So the really what we're planning for the sequence of custom scores is that we're going to launch an ARCx score. I need to do a lot better job at communicating what that's for and things like that. Essentially, we're looking at a staking rewards thing to sophisticate what we're currently doing around staking rewards to make sure that we're giving more rewards to people who have sort of hung around. So I'm going to publish more about that today. I was reading through the Discord and got the feeling like, shit, okay, all right, I didn't explain this very well. So let me get on that, and I'm keen for your feedback just to make sure that we land this in a way that makes sense and that that works. So as well as the ARCx score, we're also going to go live hopefully with 2 other scores. 1 score's been confirmed. We've gotten the blessing of the project. I'm very excited for that score. And all the UI modals and stuff will be up, so we can start to figure out how we sequentially want to drop this in next month. And then last week, finished a custom score design with Kale and the data team, and welcomed Stuart on board as well. So that's awesome. So this week I've got meetings booked with 2 new projects, 1 old project. So I need to find another project to meet with. I'll also be recommencing the community working group as well. So for the ARCx contributors that we had in the working group, there's going to be a lot more organized. I'm going to be implementing, probably coordinate. There's going to be bounties. There's going to be all this good stuff. We're going to be a tribe hunting in the jungle. So it's going to be fun. And really what I'm waiting for before I sort of figure out what date to land the first one there is the UI being shipped. So all this stuff for next week, essentially, that Kale and Kyle have been discussing around the product this week and what we're going to be launching for next week are all things that are relevant. So I'm kind of holding off as much as I can until we've got the product in a state where I can share it. We can click around. I know that the material is good, and then and I've figured out budget and everything for the bounties and what that all looks like. But expect a calendar invite this week. Once I've got all of that ironed out, I want to bring you guys in and we can have some fun together. So I'm also going to be spending more time understanding the user. So I can't remember who the community member I was talking with is, but I think there was a realization I've definitely got a bias for B2B or DAO to DAO type BD. And so something I'm going to start focusing on is just being more active in the community. I'm going to even set up time if you want to have a chat with me and talk around your ideas for the passport. Like, let me know as well. So I'm going to be more active and soliciting more advice and having more calls with people who are keen to contribute. And I'm going to figure out something. There could be a coordinate thing happening there as well, because I really want to make sure that I'm using the cheat codes, which is just listening to what everyone wants. So yeah, so and then I think just operationally this week, just defining what that score campaign. There's a lot of moving parts. There's the ARCx score, reaching consensus, defining what the benefits are. Then there's the other two custom scores, and then there's going to be third sort of separate community dependencies there. So yeah, it's just figuring out how we roll this out and decluttering all of the moving parts so we get like a really nice functioning sequence of things, which is awesome, and keep that momentum going. So shout outs for last week. So Joel Dave has been doing some sort of like community management and has been really proactive, jumping into our DAO server. He's always coming up with new ideas, created an FAQ section. He's had some ideas for how we can better share this type of call reporting on Twitter and stuff. So I just wanted to shout out Joel Dave. Thank you for all the work you're doing. It's great. Keep going. It's awesome to see you figuring out how everything works, because it's a bit of a beast, and we're simplifying things, but we're still getting there. So, and then I also want to shout out. This is me and Kerman have had a mind meld clearly. So I just wanted to shout out some of the community members as well. I'm starting to see you guys as my team, and I'm going to start figuring out a way to make that a lot more real as well. So Jamar's, Dean Michael, and our newcomer GN_doc, awesome feedback, like keep it coming. Also saw Wu on the call. Not sure if Wu's still on. Wu, will see you there as well. I saw some of the feedback you gave as well around like what's going on with the ARCx score as well. Super valuable. So thank you for that. I'm going to get on that today and figure out, what does it mean, better communicating that, and seeing if it's of value. Could we do something better with it as well, or what works best? And then the challenges as well. So it's just defining the score campaign, making sure that we reach consensus on things before and it's well communicated before we ship out announcements. And then, my endeavor to constantly be better communicating with the community. So yeah, that's everything from me this week, guys.
Cool. Yeah, great to see the hype in the community call chat and just everyone, all the regulars here. It's really nice to see, and definitely want to bring you guys more into the fold. So stay tuned. Cool. Hugh, operations, hit us.
Hey team. Shorter update from me. Last week, as I mentioned, I had like limited capacity as I was rolling off my full-time gig. So I didn't get that much done, but what I did was, you would have seen that Road Ahead blog posted on Substack. If you haven't read that, would absolutely implore you to read it. It's super enlightening, paints the picture of what the vision is and the journey that we've gone on to get to where we are today. So please take a read and share with everyone you know. Secondly, working on those FAQs, I know that like this is a bit of a short-term thing. To be really honest, it's like it's super important that we update this, but it's like still kind of working in progress, and I'll explain why in a moment. And then the third thing there was on Friday we had a IRL catch up with Liam and Kerman, and that was, I think the main output from that was just a bit of clarity around what are the main things that we want to track, and like how do we want to almost like coordinate around a single KPI going forward. So that was a pretty interesting and enlightening conversation. So thinking ahead to next week, actually straight after this call, we just have a small to-do, which is to share out the Angel Round token distribution. So the goal is to send that out by the 31st of October. Then I'm going to work with Joel on those FAQs to actually like finalize them and operationalize them. But as I mentioned, that's a smaller item, and the reason is because the third item here is a pretty important one to think through. So there's a bit of thinking that has to be done on this one, which is if we think about like the journey of somebody who has like no idea about ARCx, all the way through to when they've purchased ARCx and then claimed their first passport as like one experience. And then the second part is you're a passport holder and you're in the community. How do you become like our contributors of the week? You know, that's sort of like highly engaged, really, really valuable community member. What we want to do is like look at that experience end to end and go, where are we doing well and where are we doing poorly? And I know that just as I know we're all smart and we're all really engaged here, and we all have done the research, but for a lot of us, for a lot of people, and for the vast majority of society, like who doesn't know about ARCx, like how do we lubricate that journey and then provide like more opportunities to be active in the community? That's the goal here. So part of that will be FAQs, part of that will be, you know, improving our comms, part of that will be, you know, updating our Discord to be more inclusive, and a whole range of other things. So there's a bit of thinking that has to be done this week on this. And as a result, as we're going through this journey, like I would really encourage anyone on this call and anyone in the community who listens to this to just to DM me and like set up some time so we can talk through what are the friction points that you've seen and that we should be prioritizing to actually, you know, with the goal of increasing or improving onboarding and then making, you know, that journey of being like a contributor more streamlined. So that's really the focus for this week. Quick shout out, like Joel, you're killing it, man. It's awesome to see like just the quantity of ideas, and it's really keeping me on my toes. So I'm going to reach out to you after this call, and we'll chat about like ways of getting that those ideas operationalized. I think the main benefit, or like the main kind of theme of these ideas is like how do we increase accessibility of our comms, which is a really, really important goal to have. So yeah, like massive shout out for coming up with those ideas and being really proactive about it. Oh, I forgot to mention this. One of the other things that I'm keen to do this week that came out of the IRL discussion with Kerman and Liam was how do we operationalize one of our KPIs? So we want to look at not only, you know, number of passports claimed, but we also want to consider like the engagement of people who are using passports. So you know, that's going to be really important once we launch custom scores and once we get more integrations. But we want to start like tracking that as a key metric going forward. And then finally, challenges. There's actually very little in the way of me you know, doing this work. So as I mentioned, I'm now fully kind of dedicated to ARCx, so which is really exciting, and I've got like full capacity. So yeah, it's just a matter of actually getting shit done, which I'm really excited for. And that's it for my update.
Cool. I think we've got yeah, I don't think that seems to be about it. Cool. Well, I guess thank you all for jumping on here today. The community call chat that's been popping. It's always really cool to see you guys' comments and things. We're gonna be kind of increasing the quality of this like YouTube live streams and whatnot. And I'm glad to see Kenji jump on. He's been having some good drinks. So yeah, glad to see everyone here and Kenji, and I'll catch you guys around till next time. Bye.